Hello again from Istanbul. I wanted to do another video update because first, I haven't done one in a while, and secondly, I just got back for my first time to Paris. It was my spring break, and I was lucky enough to have a good friend who was studying in Paris, and she let me stay at her place, so I was able to really stay in Paris for about 10 days quite cheaply. So it was a really great experience, and of course, you know, Paris is such an amazing city, and I did so many things that of course I cannot fit everything into this little video, so I just want to give a general overview of my trip to Paris in this video, and then there will be subsequent posts, written posts on the blog, in which I'll try to capture some of my experiences or impressions. But it was quite exciting, I have to say, going to Paris for the first time, because I've actually been studying French for 3 years. So it was my first time, really, that I was able to engage directly with the Francophone world. And that was both fascinating, exciting, and also quite intimidating. But basically, yeah, about a week ago last Friday, I got up at 5 in the morning and I took a taxi to Sabiha Gökçen Airport, which is the smaller airport in Istanbul. It's on the Asian side of the city. It took an hour to get there. And I was traveling alone, so it's always more stressful when you're flying alone, I think, just because you're worried logistically about making your flight and everything. But I was actually there way ahead of time, so far ahead of time, in fact, that when I tried to go through security to go wait at the gate for my plane, the Turkish security just literally laughed at me in a friendly way. And they couldn't believe that I was actually coming through security so far ahead of time. It was something, I was going through security, it's like 7 in the morning for like a 10:30 flight, and they actually wouldn't let me through. They said I'd have to wait more. So it was a good experience. But the other funny thing was that they all saw on my ticket, my boarding pass, that I was going to France, and so all of the Turkish customs officials and Turkish security guards were speaking French to me, and they thought I was French, and many of them know French, or at least know it a little bit, and so they wanted to practice their French. So it was sort of very disorienting to be a native English speaker in Turkey speaking French with a Turkish custom official. It just sort of throws the whole paradigm of language up in the air and turns it on its head. But it was fascinating. But basically, yeah, I had a good flight to Paris. I got to Paris at 4 or 5 in the afternoon and figured out how to call my friend, which was a little difficult because my cell phone does not work in Paris. I took a bus, met my friend, and we just jumped right in, and we started off, well, the first thing we did is we went to a cafe, because I was fatigued, and, I mean, it's France, and cafe culture is extremely important, and so we took some coffee, and then we ended up actually going to Notre Dame the first night, which was just great. I got some really good pictures, the light was really awesome, and the Seine was flowing right by, just fantastic. But basically, the rest of the week, we just sort of made what I think was really the perfect Paris experience, because we balanced equally the sightseeing stuff, you know, all of the big landmarks that one has to see in Paris. So obviously, the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame, all of the Louvre, all of these things. But we also tried to have a cultural experience, and what I mean by that is more of a social one. So, you know, I met a lot of my friends, French friends, and I spent a lot of time in cafes, talking to people, and just meeting people, and really trying to get a feel for the culture, in addition to merely the history. And so together, I think it was a quite good experience. there were also a lot of really interesting issues. You know, I guess I didn't realize how accustomed I'd become to living in Turkey until I went to France, because there was sort of, you know, living in Turkey and picking up Turkish a little bit, at least on a basic functional level. I had sort of internalized a lot of Turkish words. So, for example, like the ones that people use very commonly. So, please, thank you, yes, and no. You know, when we immerse ourselves in cultures, I think, having lived in Istanbul for 2 months, I had been in the habit of, when people ask me a question, I say evet, which means yes, and it's instinctual, not instinctual, but it's automatic, it's involuntary, it had been. And so, when I came to Paris, I would find myself, in the first 2 days especially, almost responding in Turkish to questions that people would ask me in French. So it was really kind of confusing and disorienting, again, because you know, I do have at least a intermediate academic knowledge of French, but here I was trying to negotiate that with the sort of more pragmatic, useful Turkish that I'd internalized, and so it was really disoriented, and also, you know, socially, culturally too, the differences are quite profound. In Turkey, as I've mentioned in some of my posts, generally people are very, very approachable. So you can go up to people in a cafe and just introduce yourself and start talking, and more than likely you will end up being, you know, friends with those people, or at least those people will very much welcome you and sort of treat you as a guest in their city. And it's not to say that Parisians are not friendly people or good-spirited, but it's a different culture for sure. There's sort of the notion of, I think, the American private sphere, the personal private sphere, which I think France takes maybe to even a higher level. It's just a bit more closed, I guess. And the other thing in terms of language is that in Turkey, most Turkish people are so surprised and usually thrilled to hear an American speaking Turkish that they sort of welcome it. If you speak Turkish, they want to see what you know, and they generally are very impressed and happy, even if, you know, I butcher the accent or I mess up horrendously. But of course, in Paris, it's quite different, because there's different political tensions and stereotypical assumptions between the two bodies of people, and so I just would say that it wasn't quite as welcomed linguistically, if you catch my drift. But, you know, I did use French a fair amount, and I used it successfully. But I would just say that I'm much more intimidated to speak French to a French person than I am to speak Turkish to a Turkish person, even though my knowledge of French is far more extensive than my knowledge of Turkish. But I'm rambling. I just wanted to check in. Like I said, there are going to be many posts on Paris, going over some different things. But yeah, I just wanted to do a little video update, and I will talk to you soon.